Hi, darling. Gorgeous. Lovely to see you. Hello, hello. Bronwyn, for those who don't know, is in Canada and I'm down in Florida, so we're on the same side of the Atlantic, which is quite nice. Bronwyn and I had a really good chat on the phone the other day, and because she suffers from autoimmune disease, Hashimoto's, I thought it might help to put things into context if I just told you a bit about it for those of you who don't know. Yeah, so you know Hippocrates and his famous quote, let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. He also came up, I mean, he's a very wise man, with a less well-known bon mot or quote, which is all disease begins in the gut. And especially autoimmune disease, it's really, really important to look at gut health. And remembering that gluten makes everybody's gut leaky, whether they've got autoimmune disease or not, which is why I'm always talking about it. But anyway, coming back to the thyroid regulates all systems in our bodies, including energy, bones, digestive and gallbladder, health, brain function, blood sugar and insulin control. Nothing really happens properly if the thyroid isn't working properly. And essential thyroid nutrients. So very often people think, well, they've been given a diagnosis of hypothyroidism, and so they're going to take the thyroid medication. Or maybe even the bioidentical, well, not exactly bioidentical, but it can be a glandular formula, or it can be the standard medical thyroid replacement. But really essential nutrients include, this is not an exhaustive list of course, selenium, known as selenium over here, iodine and zinc. So if you know that you have a thyroid problem, do consider taking a thyroid supplement, a thyroid support supplement. It's really important. And also to remind you that adrenal health and thyroid health go hand in hand. So if our adrenals are overworked, exhausted, we're in a state of adrenal fatigue, eventually what happens first of all is the thyroid kind of says, well, I'll try and pick things up here. But eventually the thyroid says, actually, I can't do this either. And then everything starts to slow down. So what's really important for adrenal health? Get blood sugar under control. So good old HBD. Get rid of gluten, because gluten makes everybody's gut leaky. And that puts lots of pressure on our immune system and on our adrenal glands. And find ways to take the pressure off stress. Really, really important. Get enough sleep. Yep. And coming back to blood sugar, eat the HBD way. Really key. And Hashimoto's, which is low thyroid or hypothyroid, like all autoimmune diseases, this information I'm just about to share with you came from Alessio Fasano, who is a brilliant scientist, and he wrote a fabulous paper in 2012 all about autoimmune disease and involving gluten. And he says that there are three things that we need to have going on to develop autoimmune disease. One is genetic susceptibility. Have you got the genes that would predispose you to celiac or Hashi's or whatever? Two, environmental and dietary triggers. One is gluten, and another one is gut bacteria in the small intestine where they shouldn't be. And the third thing is leaky gut. So without all those three things going on, we actually don't develop autoimmune disease. So yeah, do read his paper from 2012. It's a really easy read. It's not like scientific jargon. It's I promise you, it's a good read. 90% of hypothyroid cases are due to autoimmunity. And typically the doctors will only test for TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone. And that fluctuates naturally for years and years, going up and down. And so it's not a good indication of if there's anything autoimmune going on. The only way to check for that is to look for the thyroid antibodies. And that is a very accurate test. So 90% of hypothyroid cases are autoimmune. The majority of hypothyroid cases are females, aged between 20 and 60, but only 10% show overt symptoms, obvious symptoms. And I know that Bronwyn she was suffering for years and years before her mum's doctor finally picked up that there was this autoimmune thyroid condition going on. But some of the things to watch out for are things like dry hair, puffy face, constipation, depression, eyebrow thinning, typically the outer third of the eyebrows, enlarged thyroid, which is often visible on the front of your throat, and slow heart rate, cold intolerance, i.e. feeling cold the whole time or really disliking the cold, dry skin, so as well as dry hair, fatigue, memory problems, menstrual disorders and infertility, muscle aches and pains, weight gain, and brittle nails. So the solution to all that, not the solution, but what's really important dietary-wise is to get blood sugar under control, to eat high-quality protein 3 times a day, to choose a wide intake of vegetables, including the brightly coloured ones and the sulphurous and cruciferous veg. Reduce starchy carbs, here we go. Bread, rye, wheat, oats, all grains, not just the gluten-free, the gluten-containing grains, and potatoes. Those are the things that count as starchy carbohydrates. Make sure that you're getting enough selenium, iodine, zinc, among other things, and avoid goitrogenic foods. Goitrogenic foods are foods which interfere with iodine uptake by the body, and they include cassava, linseed or flaxseed, and sweet potato. And soy, be careful with soy. Eat organic, non-GMO, and tempeh is better than tofu because it's been fermented. And make sure that brassica veg, so things like cabbage and broccoli, are properly cooked through. So I hope that's given you a bit of background. I hope that will help to put our conversation into context. And let me introduce the lovely Bronwyn to you, who we also met on Instagram, and I was intrigued by her rye bread starter. Yeah. So Bronwyn, talk a little bit, because I know that you were very ill. You were very poorly last Christmas, last December. I don't know if it started in November or December. And you decided that you would re-embrace HBD, and the 1st of January 2024 was that was your right, I'm off date, and everybody in the house is going to have to join in because, you know, this is really important to me. And just to say that Bronwyn suffers not only with autoimmune thyroid, Hashimoto's, but also with endometriosis, with horrible migraines and digestive problems, as well as candida overgrowth. But she ordered the 2nd edition of HBD, which is this one, and got going in January this year. If you got this book, this is the original book, the first book, and it was written in 2018. So that is 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So it's 6 years old now. So if you really want to get the up-to-date information and make your life much easier, get the 2nd edition. It will really help. Bronwyn, what did you notice about the 2nd edition? Did you find it a clearer read?
Yep. So my first time around, I tried HBD in 2020, because I was also having some issues with my Hashis. I was flaring, and the one thing with the Hashimoto's is you cannot lose weight no matter what you try. I've constantly been the same weight for probably 17 years now that I've had it. There was a huge initial weight gain in the beginning when I got first diagnosed. I have all the symptoms. I suffer from my hair falls out a lot. My nails don't grow, that kind of stuff. My skin is always very, very dry. And my skin breaks out a lot. So I have a lot of sensitivity in my skin. I do get corsetal face, so the link between the autoimmune and the adrenals is a big one for me. I suffer very much from adrenal overload if I don't take care of myself. And my first time around on HBD was great. It was 2020, it was lockdown. I bought the 1st edition. I got going on Instagram, and I lost, for the first time in roughly 10 years, I lost 10 kgs. So that, or 20, just over 20 pounds, which for me was amazing because I've tried every diet. I tried keto, I had tried Weight Watchers, and no matter what I did, I would literally lose nothing. I would go weeks. Yeah. I even went to a dietitian, And she accused me of cheating. She was like, well, you're not following the diet. I'm like, I'm following the diet. She's like, well, but on those diets, it's a lot of fat-free this, and it's a lot of, and it's, are you eating cereal in the mornings, like your Kellogg's Special K mixed with fat-free milk? And unfortunately for me, someone with an autoimmune disorder, those things are triggers. They trigger my inflammation, they trigger my immune system, and they were actually having a detrimental effect on my weight. So instead of losing weight, I was gaining weight, or I was feeling poorly.
Yeah.
Then the thing with HPD is the first time around, I got very excited. I lost the 10 kgs, and me and you spoke about this. Yeah. I transitioned into phase 4 very quickly. I got so excited that, oh, this is all working and I'm back to normal. I felt fantastic. Yeah. And did my transition a little too quick, and I went back to phase 4. But I also didn't understand phase 4, which is now in the 2nd edition. I understand that a lot more clearer. And also, I think the newer book laid out a lot of things for me that might not have been as so clear in the 1st edition. So I kind of got a bit carried away the first time around. But I felt fantastic, looked great. I was like, I'm off to the races. Yeah. And then I forgot that I have an autoimmune disease, and then it came back because I'd started reintroducing things into my life that I had started eating gluten again. I had started adding sugar. I had started adding food with nitrates, that kind of stuff. And before I knew it, in December of 2023, I had gained all the weight back. And I was very poorly. I was flaring like you couldn't believe. Yeah. My blood pressure had reached 160. I had gained 24 pounds onto my frame. I wasn't sleeping properly. My adrenals were completely overrun. My cortisol level was like at 600. My blood sugar was spiraling. It was around about 5.8. Cholesterol was high. So my mom took one look at me while we were on holiday, and she said to me, I don't know what's happening, but you need to pull yourself. And I remember we were talking about it. I was on vacation in Niagara Falls, and where that night I went onto Amazon and ordered myself the 2nd edition, and yes, it started on January. I'm happy to say that in 3 months I have managed to turn most of it around, the damage that I had done. My autoimmune system is responding very well. My medication has dropped by over 30 milligrams. So I take 2 different of thyroid medication. I take levothyroxine, which is the lab-based one, to take desiccated thyroid, because I can't just take one. My system needs both, because I have issues converting T3 to T4. Yeah. My adrenals I just completed a 24-hour urine test, and my adrenals are back to normal, where they were sitting in the...
Hey, well done you, Bronwyn. That's so exciting, and it's really lovely to see things like in print. Never mind how you feel, you feel completely different, but how comforting to see what a difference that's made. I'm so pleased for you.
Yep. And the big one is obviously insulin. So so that is a big thing with autoimmune, and I don't think people realize how it plays with your system. But I will suffer from huge like insulin spikes, and then my blood sugar would be, if I tested it, because my husband is actually a type 1 diabetic, so I have a meter here at home which I use, and the days that I feel terrible, my sugar would and it would stay high for hours, and then the next day I would have the inflammation. So your joints are sore, it feels like you're almost 90 and you're arthritic. It's a great feeling. Yeah. On HPD, I don't have any of those feelings. I feel good. I can manage my day. I wake up in the morning. I'm not fatigued because I don't have that insomnia or that adrenal cortisol that's flowing around every day. The one thing I did notice with HPD is I suffer from getting nutrients into my system, so I don't absorb a lot of nutrients. So I'll often have my blood checked, and I have very low red blood cell count, because my body can't absorb nutrients, it's not making enough red blood cells. On HBD, my red blood cells are normal. They are high. They are back to where they're supposed to be. And I think it's because with diets, you're encouraged to eat different things every day, and it's not the same. So for me, that's something that I want to share with anybody else who's got an autoimmune. Like mix it up. I have one of these. It's a magnetic planner, and it sits in my fridge.
I love that. Yeah.
It's color coded for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I make sure that no matter 4 days will go in a row where I won't have the same things. Make sure that lots of different proteins, lots of different vegetables. I do eat fruit. I find I like my berries in the morning. It just keeps me fuller for longer. And it doesn't seem to spike my sugar. I drink a lot of water in between my meals. And then I have only 2 cups of coffee a day, because I find at night, just to keep my adrenals and my cortisol levels, I don't have coffee in the evenings. So
no, that's great. The other thing that really contributes to malabsorption of the nutrients that we need is gluten, because it not only makes the gut leaky, but it also adds to inflammation. And you know, the little villi, the little hairy things in our gut need to be standing up straight to absorb anything that's coming through. But with especially with gluten, especially with celiac, obviously that's a prime example, the little things aren't standing up, they're kind of flattened, which means there's much less absorptive capacity in the digestive system. So gluten is really, really a big no-no for anybody with any autoimmune disease, not just celiac. That's just the tip of the iceberg. So I hope you've given your husband a good talking to as well, because he's type 1.
He's been having to eat HBD every single night for the last month.
Yeah.
And his A1C has actually been reduced by 3 basis points. So anyone who has diabetes from type 1, A1C is how they measure their health. And his was terrible. But he's been eating HBD every single evening, and he has his little bowl of fruit, his apple after his meal, and always bowl of berries. He just has slightly bigger portions than me, because he doesn't need to lose weight. He just needs to be healthy. So it's actually, he's autoimmune. And I've taken all gluten out of the house. And even this Easter, his A1C didn't go crazy. He didn't go crazy. For me, this was the healthiest Easter I've ever navigated. For me, gluten is like drinking 3 bottles of wine.
It really is. It's horrible. Yeah, horrible stuff. Yeah.
Almost like I have terrible brain. My joints are all sore. I get a headache. I'm terribly dehydrated. So it's honestly, for me, like gluten is the poison. I don't want to have anything to do with it. It will not be
good. I like that. And your husband, he doesn't mind. He's going along with it, and I guess he's feeling much better.
He's feeling much better. And also, there are gluten-free alternatives. So if he really wants, so Saturday night I had a lettuce burger. He wanted a burger, so I bought him a gluten-free bun. He says there's no difference. Gluten-free has come such a far way from the hard. You used to find gluten-free, and it was like the most terrifying. It looked like cardboard and tasted even worse. Nowadays, there's so much improvements with gluten-free, and you get healthier gluten-free options than overly processed gluten-free. So I'm finding he's quite happy with the transition. He hasn't really noticed.
And what does he do when he's left his own devices for lunch? Is he out for lunch usually?
No, so he typically in a work day he'll eat breakfast, but he fasts over lunchtime because he says it keeps his sugar constant for during the day.
Yep.
And at home, he generally likes to partake with a gluten-free sandwich for lunch, which is fine. Usually he doesn't seem to have any issues with dairy, so he likes to have any kind of like goat's cheese, cheddar, like a really good quality cheddar cheese. Yes. So he'll generally stick to a gluten-free sandwich at home for lunch, and then he'll have HBD supper with me, and then on the weekend, usually eggs for everybody.
And before that, Bronwyn, was he having just a normal wheat sandwich?
Yes.
Lunch? Yeah. Because if you could, I know it's a really big ask, but you know, lots of the gluten-free grains can cross-react with gluten. So, you know, even though you're not actually having gluten, I found, I can't remember what it was. Yes, I can. It was corn. So I did a Cyrex blood test a few years ago because I know that I have a problem with gluten, and I didn't eat it for years, 10 or 15 years, I can't remember. But I did have this thing about corn chips, you know, those tortilla chips, things like that. And used to love sweet corn as a kid. And sure enough, corn came back as being a cross-reactive. So for my body, when I eat corn, it reacts as if I'm eating gluten. So
we don't eat corn just because I react to corn.
you do sweet.
Corn spikes his blood sugar.
Yeah.
So I find I use a lot more insulin. The gluten-free product I got for him is a potato starch mixed with tapioca. And then it's got a lot of seeds in it. So it's got a lot of pumpkin seed, sunflower seed, that kind of stuff. So it kind of mimics a multigrain. I don't have it. For cheat meals or treat meals, I prefer to have like potato. I find mashed potato, baked potato, those are my sort of carb treats.
Too. I love baked potato, mashed potato once a week. That's it. Masses of butter. Yeah. Bronwyn, I just wanted to read, because I did ask Bronwyn if this would be okay. I got such a lovely message from Bronwyn, because we talked before Easter, and we talked about gluten, and we talked about maybe having more fat at treat meals. And Bronwyn sent me this sweet message. I just navigated my healthiest happy Easter. No chocolate overdose, no gluten, no hangovers. Healthy food, enjoyable meals, and a lovely treat meal. No weight fluctuations and no symptoms. Hashi's feels like it's in check. Looking forward to delicious Easter lamb, slow cooked in EVOO extra virgin olive oil with veg. And how was that lamb?
It was actually very, very nice. Like slow cooked for 6 hours, wrapped up in parchment. It was gorgeous. And my gluten-free treat was actually a gluten-free carrot cake that I made.
Did you make it with almond flour?
I did. It was almond and coconut flour.
Lovely.
And I filled it with zucchini, carrots, banana, apples, and pineapple. So it had like a lot of the sweetness came from fruit, like natural fruit. And it actually worked out very, very well. So I didn't even miss chocolate or all the bad things. And then the rest of Easter, I literally stuck to my plan. So I didn't really go off track, which was fantastic. And this morning we were talking about I've had a flare on and off for what we suspect for about 3 weeks, where my weight fluctuates up. But I stayed the course, and that's, I think, is the most important thing. If you are autoimmune, don't get discouraged if you see others on the groups and that losing lots of weight and you're stalling. I stalled. We spoke about it. I stalled for 5 weeks. I lost a huge amount, and then for 5 weeks nothing happened. And then the last 3 weeks, which I suspect was a mini flare happening, but because I'm eating so healthy and I'm taking care of myself and I'm doing my supplements. So yes, I'm on a lot of supplements. I take selenium every night. I'm on magnesium. I'm on vitamin D, because it's very important. If you're autoimmune, you have a vitamin D deficiency. So I take a lot of supplements, and then through the flare, I chose to have a lot more fish. I chose to eat a lot more green and cruciferous veggies. And I seem to have reddened it out, because I had a drop of another 2 pounds. And my resting heart rate this morning has dropped by 10 basis points. So
wow,
that's a lot.
That's a lot. That's fantastic.
And so
I hope everybody heard that. Please, if you have a stall, just keep going, because Bronwyn, she stalled for 5 weeks, and I'm very, very proud of you, and well done for just keeping the faith and thinking, no, I'm just going to keep at this. It doesn't matter what the scales say. It's as we always talk about, the weight loss occurs as a side effect of everything being brought back into balance, of us achieving better health. So please do stick with it, and try not to weigh yourself so much. That's really key. Use your clothes as a guide. Really important. By the way, Bronwyn, sorry to interrupt. I just saw a message from Desi saying, could we have that carrot cake recipe, please?
Sure, I'll post it on my page.
That'd be amazing. Thank you so much.
And also one of the key things is that if you are having a flare, I found for myself, like I just took a little bit of extra care with myself. So I upped my portion slightly. So I'm on 140 grams. I found like I was really battling. I upped my dinners because I felt like I needed the extra protein.
Yeah.
So I increased everything by 20 grams. So I was having 160 grams of protein and 160 grams of veg. And it wasn't for very long. It was just a couple of days just to get me through whatever my body was experiencing, whether it was the menstrual issue, or it was a migraine, or it was all the aches and pains, or it was the weight fluctuation where suddenly I woke up and I'm 4 pounds heavier, and you kind of like, well, what just happened? Yeah. I also made sure to up my magnesium and just drink lots and lots of water, and then your body resettles itself. I think that's a big thing with autoimmune is you have to understand your body's not going to behave like everybody else's. Yeah. And you're going to have good days and bad days, but your bad days are not like the bad days we used to. Like I'm used to bad days where I can barely get out of bed in the morning and I have to force myself to get through a day, and I'm miserable, and I'm taking anti-inflammatories and I'm taking headache tablets and I'm drinking 9 cups of coffee just so that I can make it through till 5 o'clock. Whereas now my bad day might be, well, I woke up and yes, I feel a little rickety this morning, or I'm feeling a little bit down, but I'm drinking lots of water and I'm making sure I have a healthy lunch. And by the evening, I'm feeling fantastic again. So it's very important that you just stick to the plan and don't detour. Don't say, well, oh, everything's falling apart now and I'm going to just go back to old habits. For me, that's the biggest thing, is I haven't gone back to any of my old habits. I haven't relied on the 10 o'clock cup of coffee or the 3 o'clock cup of coffee, whereas that's what I used to do. I used to have to drink copious amounts of caffeine during the day to get me through. And then also I would look for carbohydrates. So I would then make sure like that night I'd eat a big pasta, because now I'm like, oh, I need energy, etc. But not knowing that the next morning that's going to make it even worse.
It's a really vicious cycle, isn't it? You know, and as you said before, you know, you're drinking all that coffee, and what are we doing with that? We're hammering our poor little adrenal glands. You know, and what they need is TLC. You know, that 2 cups of coffee a day is perfect, especially, well, only with food, because then our blood sugar's going up anyway, because it's our adrenal glands that have to cope with low blood sugar and, you know, to return us to a state of balance. And, you know, if we keep hammering them like that, eventually they say, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm sorry, but, you know, I can't, you know, I just can't cope with this. And it's so wonderful and so useful to hear you reassuring people and telling people what you've been through and how important it is to keep going with it. It's really, really helpful, Bronwyn. I'm so grateful that you've come on here and you're sharing your story. And also want to say, I'm so sorry about those people, you know, I don't know if they were dietitians or doctors who recommended, you know, skim milk and Special K to you and then accused you of not following their ridiculous, destructive diet. I mean, it's just so sad. You know, you just felt worse and worse, you know, of course.
You know, the medical profession is still very much behind autoimmune. I don't think they understand it. So like my doctor, he was like, well, you're looking fantastic. Whatever you're doing, keep doing. And I'm like, well, I'm doing this new diet and everything. And he's like, well, you know, well, what is it? So I show him and he's like, oh, you're just eating vegetables and that. Well, good for you. Just carry on going. Whereas I don't think they really understand. I've had endocrinologists say to me, you need to stop going through McDonald's drive-throughs, and you need to shut your mouth and stop eating. Whereas
so rude and so unpleasant.
And those are and those are the times where I've been on keto fasts for like 5 days, and I'm living on all the wrong things because I'm starving myself. Yeah. And nothing's happening. So I think that's the key here, is that you are eating exceptionally healthy and you're not eating anything processed, and your body's got time to recover from all the bad things that are happening inside of it. So my autoimmune attacks my thyroid and it attacks my liver. So I have I have a double whammy. My Hashi's is liver focused and it's thyroid focused. So right now, my liver enzymes are looking really good and my thyroid is functioning normal. And it's because of good food. And I'm not eating all the processed stuff, because I think there's such a culture out there that you have to live on protein shakes and you have to live fat free and you have to take all these super powders and things like that. The fact of the matter is that my health has never been better. In 3 months, I've managed to reverse all the bad things. I mean, my sugar is sitting at 4.8, and that during most of my days of in between my meals, my sugar is going down to about 4.6. So for my insulin, that's fantastic. It means that my body is doing what it's supposed to be doing instead of reacting to everything else that's going on.
That's just amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I just wanted to come back to gluten and the thyroid and autoimmune disease. Autoimmune disease is when the immune system attacks our own body, and it just sort of goes AWOL. And so one of the things that we really want to make sure of is that our gut's no longer leaky, because the leakier our gut is, the more sort of big proteins escape from the gut into the bloodstream, the more hyperactive the immune system gets. And Fasano said that he believes that the body reacts to gluten as if it were a kind of pathogen, a really nasty bug. And the other problem with gluten and the thyroid is that the sequence of proteins in gluten are very similar to the sequence of proteins on the thyroid. So if we've got a leaky gut because we're eating gluten all the time, and the immune system has recognized that as an enemy, it's hyperactive, like I was saying, and it starts looking for anything that might look like that. And one of the things, of course, is the thyroid gland. So it makes it really, really, really vitally important for anybody with any thyroid disorders to think about leaky gut and to absolutely get rid of gluten. Other things that are bad for thyroid health include, I did say about sweet potato and linseed or flaxseed. And make sure that your cruciferous vegetables are properly cooked. So that's cabbage, kale, cauliflower, broccoli, turnips, rapeseed. Well, we're not going to be eating rapeseed in any form anyway. That's just an horrible industrial oil. And millet. So, if you're thinking, well, I'm going to go gluten-free, because I was listening to Bronwyn and Petronella, be careful with the gluten-free grains and avoid anything with millet. And ideally, of course, we'd all make our own bread or whatever, using almond flour and coconut flour and things like that. But just be really careful and look at the ingredients. If you're thinking, well, it's a treat meal, I haven't had any gluten, I don't want to eat gluten, so I'm going to choose something gluten-free. Be careful with it, because like Bron was saying, most of it's highly processed and really not very good for us and contains very questionable ingredients. Bronwyn, honey, can you describe what a flare feels like for people who don't know, when you have a flare up?
So my flares will range anything where I'll have insomnia, so I'll wake up in the middle of the night with adrenal fatigue, so my corsets will get for me, it's very, my mom will tell you, she can see straight away, my face gets very puffy. So I get the swollen face, kind of look like a little blowfish because it just goes and my cheeks get very, very red. It almost I get a lot of rosacea, and that's the corsetal. They actually call it corsetal face. I get terrible joint pain, and I have neuropathy in these 3 fingers and right thigh. So I get I lose sensation in these 3 fingers and in my thigh. So I can't feel. It's almost like I have a dead leg or dead finger. So they get like pins and needly. And then I get a lot of joint pain. So my joints I have a lymph gland just under my knee on my right hand side. So my right hand side is where my flares are prevalent. So usually the indication that I'm going to go into a flare, I'll get like a big lump of fluid in my right lymph gland just under my kneecap. And then my legs will go numb, and then my fingers will go numb. And then I'll get the joint pain. So I end up with like arthritic hands where my fingers are a little bit. And then I get a lot of it in my neck and shoulders. So I'll end up with a lot of muscular pain. And it feels almost like I've been to the gym and then I was ridden over by a motor car on the way home from the gym. That's kind of how you feel.
Yeah.
And for me, it's the fatigue. So it doesn't matter how much you sleep, you're still tired. And then that sort of, and I find that my blood pressure is generally very high. It'll spike. And also my heart rate will skyrocket. And then I'll tend to, then those obviously lead to other issues. But since having HPD, my flares have been, I've been experiencing one, I believe, for the last 3 weeks. It's kind of been a bit hard to tell because I've been feeling so good. But I can tell with my, I've had some spikes in my heart rate, and I've had some issues with my menstrual system, and I've had some diarrhea. All great things to chat about. But those are all signs to me that there is something in play. And then also the weight gain. So I can just gain 6 pounds overnight. I'll be six pounds heavier the next day. And I don't know where it came from. Because it's my body holding on to anything that it can at that moment.
Especially water.
And I find because now I'm on HPD and I'm drinking water constantly and things like that, the flares are very mild. So I've had a bit of numbness over the last few weeks. I've had the little bit of numbness, but it hasn't been anywhere near what it's been. It's kind of like, well, I'm feeling a little bit off today. Tomorrow I feel fine. I'm feeling off today. I can still go through my day, that's the big thing for me, and why I'm so excited about being on the HPD diet again for the second time and really giving this a proper go. Is that my flares are not debilitating to the rest of my life. Whereas before, you know, you kind of you can't do anything. On the weekends, I'd like sit on the couch. Like I can't really get going. I can't do stuff. Whereas this time around, even though I'm feeling slightly off on certain days, I'm fine, really.
Have you been under extra stress? Is there anything that you can pinpoint or suspect as being behind it?
I know I have been busy with work, and I know stress is a trigger for me. So I know I have been like busier. So I've been mindful that I just need to watch. I think, and also I was walking in, and I think I might have tried to go too quickly into it, which is one of the big things is that before I would always do exercise, and that's something I've learned, especially in the second edition and your couple of lives where you've discussed not exercising in phase 2 and 3. And I think that's a big thing for me, is that I was like feeling better, so then I would go, great, let's go to the gym, let's go do this, but then I would crash spectacularly.
Yeah, I was so proud of you, and I'm so gutted and so sorry for what you've been through with not just, you know, your health, which is a lot, but also with the way that, I can say care, but I mean, it's hardly care, you know, just being attacked or accused by various doctors that you've seen. It's really, really heartbreaking. But thank goodness you found HPD, and thank goodness you know that you don't want to go back to how you were feeling before, and that you're going to stick with this and see it through. And thankfully, as you said, the second edition is much clearer on phase 4. So you know that it's not a means of getting back to what we were doing before. It's taking all the lessons that we've learnt from our body in phases 2 and 3 with us into the future, and working out what makes us feel really good and what makes us feel less than really good, and to avoid those things. And a lot of people treat their treat meals, as if it's like a free for all. And even though they're maybe eating gluten and, you know, like pizza, like gluten and dairy, and feeling really rough for 2 or 3 days afterwards, they keep doing it. And that's a real tragedy, because that's not what this is about. And you're such a good investment, and you're giving everybody such good advice, Brom, and I really appreciate you. You know, it's not going back to what we were doing before. Like I just said, it's taking the lessons that our bodies taught us, taking them forward into our life and feeling as good as we possibly can, not going through life feeling half dead. So, yeah.
And the big thing for me is exactly what you said, is the treat meal. And the first time I did HPD, the treat meal for me was like, oh, let's go large, and all those things back that because it's like, oh, it's once a week, it's not going to hurt me. Whereas now my treat meals are, I'm a lot more careful with treat meal. So for me, a nice piece of steak and a potato, or it would be a nice slow cooked ossobuco with some mash. But it's all, I'm very careful now to make sure nothing's really processed, or I'm not using lots of bottled sauces, that kind of stuff. I'm making sure that everything is almost HBD during the week, but the portion size is just a lot bigger, and I'm adding in some form of mash, or I'm having a nice Thai chicken curry, added some coconut milk, or so my treat meals are now an extension of, and I think that's the big thing for me, is that I'm not having adverse effects from the treat meal the following week, which could then push me into a flare. So it's like it's now a constant.
No, that's amazing. That is such a good lesson, and I can see, and just sort of, I'm not very good at talking and reading the messages at the same time, but I can see lots of people saying how helpful this is, and thank you so much. And thank goodness you got the second edition, because it does make a huge difference, doesn't it, to your understanding generally of the program, and that that you understood the exercise bit, how important that is. Because it's like, in a way, especially phase 2, it's a bit like being in hospital or convalescing from an operation. Your body is trying to detox all the stuff that we've been eating inadvertently, not knowing, how much harm it was doing us, but also doing, repairing. And we need to spend, for that repairing and for digestion as well, we need to spend most of our time in the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, and that's where we should be all the time. The sympathetic nervous system that's the fight, flight, or freeze part, and we should only use that when we really have to, when we have to run away from something, or when we when our life's in danger. And it's a very good and very effective life-saving formula. But most of us spend, well, not most of us, but a lot of us spend most of our time there, and that's no good. It's no good for reducing the inflammation, for repairing, for digesting, for sleeping, for anything, and no good for our poor little adrenals either, as we were talking about before. Let me just see, Bronwyn. This is so good and so helpful. I'm really, really grateful to you. Yeah, I think you made a promise to yourself not to touch gluten again.
No.
Yeah. Well done.
Oh.
Well done.
It's, for me, it's like gluten is now cyanide. It's I don't want anything to do with it, because I now understand just how much it was affecting me, and just how sick it was actually making me. And I encourage everybody to actually read labels, because you'll be very surprised what you can find gluten in. It's amazing. It's like same thing with sugar. They put sugar and gluten in everything.
Everything. Yeah. No, it's really, really sad. So happily and luckily, we're not really eating packaged food on HBD. But if you're thinking about treats, like Bronwyn says, do have a look at the labels. And if you want to avoid gluten because you don't want to have a leaky gut, or you've got any kind of autoimmune thing going on, you're not going to have any kind of gluten. It's no good thinking, well, I can have a little bit now and again. It's really, really important that you get rid of it completely. And the body is a self-healing organism, and eventually, given time, everything does heal. So just give your body the best chance by not making the gut leaky, which is what happens automatically when we eat gluten. And just in case you're just joining us, I was talking about an Italian scientist. He is an expert in celiac disease and all autoimmune disease, and he wrote a really fascinating paper in 2012. If I remember, I'll put the link up so that you can have a look at that. It's really, really brilliant. And shall we just check to see if anybody asked us any questions? I know that Gigi is there, which is wonderful, and Laura's also there. HBD Desi saying this is so helpful. Thank you. Let's see. No, I'm so grateful to you, Bronwyn. Really, really grateful. And if it hadn't been for your sourdough rye bread, I don't know. I guess we would have discovered each other. Well, you obviously know about HBD, but I would have discovered you eventually. And I'm so glad that I did. And this has been so helpful for so many people. So I'd like to give you a really big hug and say thank you, thank you.
No, there's so many people that suffer from autoimmune, and I think we get into like a victim mentality about it, that it's like, well, I feel terrible every day, so there is no way I can feel better. And I think that's the secret, is that it's just very simple, and you can actually make so much difference to your health. That has been a big thing for me, is that these simple changes. I'm not on a crazy diet. I'm not taking hundreds and thousands of supplements. I'm not drinking protein shakes. I'm literally just eating really good quality food. I'm eating really good quality protein, and I'm changing up my meals every day. And I think that was a big thing for me, is because I could get into a rut of having chicken breast every day with broccoli, or chicken breast every day with cauliflower, or whereas now make it a real point of making sure that I eat lots and lots of different things every day. So whether it's sardines and EVOO, and then it's halibut, and then it's salmon, it's I do have fish in my diet. I found that to be very helpful, but I definitely make sure I try to do as much as possible. And I know a lot of people say, well, if you are autoimmune, stay away from soy and that. I have found, so I take my medication is sort of around about in the middle of the evening. I take it very late, because I've finished eating by a certain time. I'm able to take my medication nowhere near food, because we're fasting the way we do. And I find soy for me has not been a problem, because I'm choosing to eat soy either at breakfast or lunch, so I keep it away from my meds. And I choose non-GMO, so I haven't had any issue introducing tempeh or tofu in my diet. Do stay away from a lot of the legumes, so I don't have beans and chickpeas and that very often. I'll probably cycle that into my diet once every 2 weeks, just because I'm still trying I'm still on a weight loss journey with my health. So for me, I'm still trying to shake some of the Hashi's weight off. So I try and stick to more animal protein because of that. And also, I'm not sure if a lot of people are aware, but if you have an autoimmune disease or you have Hashi's, you actually need animal protein to convert T3 to T4. So whereas I've tried vegetarian or vegan diets before, and I almost put myself in hospital because it's I'm not getting the right nutrients. So so don't be scared to try things. So I mean, I've been eating everything from sardines to mackerel to bison to elk to so I've been trying tempeh. I'm now like a huge fan of smoked tofu, which I love in a stir fry. So don't be scared to try different things. You don't just have to eat chicken and turkey. You can try lots of different, as long as they're good quality sources. So I find like I a lot of red meat, but I choose organic or grass-fed.
No, perfect. Thank you. That's so helpful. Just got a couple of messages here. Is it true that eggs are not good if you have thyroid issues? Absolutely untrue. How are you with eggs, Bronwyn?
So as long as I don't have eggs more than 3 times a week, it's fine.
Okay.
It can, if I find like because I'm only having them 2 or 3 times, I don't have any issues, because sometimes you can get a bit of sinus or like from it. But I find if I'm having them, I have more than 2 at a time, and I space out my eggs. So like I had already eggs this morning, so I won't eat eggs again until next week.
Okay, perfect. That's a really good answer. Thank you. And there's a message here from Rag Trade Pre-Loved Boutique saying, I have autoimmune thyroid disease and this all sounds so familiar. I struggled for the last 22 years, tried every diet. They worked on and off years ago, but since menopause, nothing has worked. gluten intolerant also, and never put these together. Fascinating, thank you. So that's really a message for you, Bronwyn, about how, you know, you've been describing what you've been through and what, you know, your personal triggers are, and that it's just so life affirming that we know that, you know, if we change things up, we can actually feel much better and have a much you know, a much more joyful experience of life, really. You know, not feeling half dead and unable to get out of bed, and just, you know,
it's not just how I'm feeling. It's in black and white. My blood test I had in December versus all my medical tests that I had 4 weeks ago. It's like you're looking at two different patients. It, you can't believe, like, there are so many exclamation marks in the December one, and in my March blood work, it's like two totally different people.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key thing, is that it's not just, oh well, you're losing weight and you're feeling better. There's actually like really real physical changes that are happening, and I have been autoimmune for 21 years.
Yeah.
So these are real results. So that it's not just a, oh well, if you've lost weight and you look great. There's really big physical changes happening, and I think that's the key thing here with someone who is autoimmune and is looking to maybe start HBD. It's for me, it's the big thing is it's that I'm reversing my so that for me is the big one. I'm going from like a metabolic age of 85, and I'm taking that down every week that I stick to my plan.
Yeah. That is so cool. Thank you, thank you. And thanks to your mum as well, because it was her doctor, wasn't it, who you went to see, who finally diagnosed you with Hashimoto's. Finally.
Yes, finally. So yeah, it was a journey to get diagnosed, and I think that a lot of comments here that a lot of women go undiagnosed because it's kind of like, oh well, you've got. I do encourage you, if you do suspect that you are autoimmune or you're having any of these symptoms, to definitely, you have to have an antibody test. So that was one of the only ways I got diagnosed with Hashi's, is that it wasn't just hypothyroidism, it was that I had full-blown autoimmune, is because of those thyroid antibody tests.
Exactly. And it's absolutely horrifying to think, and this is a scientist called Amino. It's an old paper, 1988, but, and I should see if there's anything newer. 90% of hypothyroid, that's low thyroid cases, are autoimmune, which is horrifying, and they're not identified, are they? Really sad. Yeah. So get your doctor not just to test you for TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone, because in the case of autoimmune, that is pretty useless. As Bronwyn says, you need to look for the thyroid antibodies. That's the only way to tell.
And also when you do have your tests, really advocate for yourself to have your T3 and T4 levels checked.
Very important.
Because a lot of time they'll just check your T3,
yeah.
But to
T4.
manage, so I have a panel every single 6 months.
Good.
To keep mine.
No, really, really important. Bless you, Bronwyn, and thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure and so useful for so many people. You're so lovely. Thank you. We really, really appreciate this. I know that it can be a bit embarrassing talking about one's health, but we really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Bless you.
I can help anybody that has autoimmune. I'm all for it. It's a debilitating disease, and a lot of people who have autoimmune, because you don't display physical symptoms that you do look sick. You look dreadful some days, but you don't have that, what people think that someone who's sick or has an autoimmune disease looks like, because you can still get through your day.
Yeah.
It's just it's really important that you can actually turn your health around, and that for me has been the biggest lesson in the last 3 months, is that I can literally reverse my health, and that for me is the most important thing.
It's just fabulous. Thank you so much. Bronwyn, one other thing I was just thinking about, can I invite you as a collaborator on this post when it goes on my grid? Yes. And that will be on your grid as well.
No, that would be wonderful.
Thank you so much, because I think that would really, really help people as well. Yeah. But bless you and thank you. And I'm so sorry for what you've been through, but I'm so glad that you're feeling better. and that, you know, you're really clear about wanting to keep feeling better and to, you know, to keep improving your health. It's just so cool, so exciting. So thank you very, very, very much. And thank you to everybody for tuning in to listen to the conversation as well.
I'll keep you all abreast of my progress on my grid.
Good, thank you. Thank you so much. Lots of love to you. Big hugs.
Bye.
It will meet one of these days. If you don't come down here, I'll have to come up there to you.
I recommend summer. Right now it's still
Summer.
in full spring up here in Canada, so it's a week of we've got big snow forecast again.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
I'll come in the summer. We can have an elk feast.
Yeah, summer's beautiful. Summer we have Florida weather. I'm in Windsor, so I'm in southern Ontario. So our summer is kind of like Florida. It's up in the 40s, and it's great. But winter is something to get used to.
Pretty savage. Yeah. Anyway, thanks again. You're a total honey. Really, really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Very much. Bye.
Bye. Bye.